Ambassador Daeho Kim stood in the center of the Galactic Council chamber, surrounded by beings that had ruled the stars for 10,000 years. The chamber was massive, built to make visitors feel small. It worked. 17 different species sat in their elevated seats, looking down at him like gods judging a mortal. Daeho was 54 years old. He had gray hair at his temples and wrinkles around his eyes from too many sleepless nights. He wore a simple black suit, nothing fancy. Earth didn't believe in showing off. Behind him stood 2 other humans. Captain Yuna Park, commander of Earth's flagship Resilience, kept her face neutral, but her hand rested near her sidearm. Dr. Minho Choi, their cultural expert, took notes on his datapad. The Archon of the Council spoke. He was a Telvari, a species that looked like a cross between a mantis and a spider. His voice came through the translator as cold and mechanical. Ambassador Kim, the Council has reached a decision regarding humanity's continued membership. Daeho said nothing. He had learned that silence made people nervous. Humanity has been part of this council for 35 years, the Archon continued. In that time, you have fought 17 wars. You have won all 17. You have established 23 colonies in regions we designated as expansion zones. You have made trade agreements with 40 different species, many without council approval. All of those things were legal under council law, Daeho said quietly. Legal, yes. But concerning, the Archon's mandibles clicked together. Humanity grows too fast. You innovate too quickly. You befriend species that have no strategic value. You refuse to follow the natural order of things. Yuna shifted slightly behind Daeho. He could feel her anger without looking. The Council has determined that humanity represents a destabilizing force in galactic affairs, another council member said. This one was a Vorian, a species that looked like a floating jellyfish made of light. For the good of all species, we require certain adjustments. Adjustments, Daeho repeated. The Archon pulled up a holographic document. First, humanity must surrender all military vessels currently operating beyond your home solar system. You may keep a small defensive fleet around Earth, but nothing more. Second, humanity must submit to genetic optimization. Our scientists will modify your species to reduce aggressive tendencies and increase social compliance. Third, all human governments must accept permanent council oversight. We will assign advisors to guide your political decisions. The chamber fell silent. Daeho stared at the hologram, reading the details. They wanted to take humanity's teeth, rewrite their DNA, and turn them into puppets. He looked up at the 17 council members. And if we refuse, he asked, then you'll be expelled from the council and declared a hostile power, the Archon said. All trade agreements will be void. All diplomatic relations will end. Any human vessel found outside your claimed territory will be destroyed. You will be alone in a very large and very dangerous galaxy. Daeho nodded slowly. I need to consult with my government. You have 3 standard days, the Archon said. Choose wisely, Ambassador. Isolation is death. The 3 humans left the chamber in silence. They walked through corridors that had been built to make visitors feel insignificant. When they reached their ship, Yuna finally spoke. I actually think we'll agree to this, she said. Her voice shook with anger. They're afraid, Minho said. He was looking at his datapad. I've been monitoring their internal communications. They're terrified of us. Why? Yuna asked. We've never threatened them. That's exactly why, Minho explained. For 10,000 years, the Council has maintained a stable hierarchy. Strong species at the top, weak species at the bottom. Everyone knows their place. Then humans show up and break every pattern. We win wars, we should lose. We make friends with species the Council ignores. We innovate faster than anyone thought possible. Daeho sat down heavily. They're not trying to control us because we're dangerous. They're trying to control us because we don't fit in their system. So what do? Yuna asked. Daeho looked out the viewport at the stars. We go home and tell Earth the truth. Then we let humanity decide. The next 3 days were the busiest of Daeho's life. He spoke to Earth's government through secure channels. He held video conferences with colonial governors, fleet admirals, and civilian leaders. Everyone had opinions. Some wanted to fight. Some wanted to negotiate. Some wanted to surrender and hope for mercy. Dr. Minho compiled reports on what isolation would mean. Earth would lose access to certain rare materials. Trade would suffer initially. But humans had survived alone for 200,000 years before meeting aliens. They could do it again. Captain Una met with her fellowship commanders. The consensus was clear. The military would follow whatever orders Earth gave, but every single captain said the same thing. They would rather fight than submit. On the third day, Deho received his instructions from Earth. The vote had been unanimous. All member nations agreed. All colonies agreed. All military branches agreed. Humanity had made its choice. Deho returned to the council chamber. The 17 species waited, confident in their power. They had given this same ultimatum to dozens of species over the centuries. Everyone always submitted. Fear was a powerful motivator, Ambassador Kim, the Archon, said. Has humanity reached a decision? We have, Deho said. His voice was steady and calm. Humanity rejects all terms. We will not surrender our ships. We will not alter our genetics. We will not accept your oversight. The chamber erupted. Council members spoke over each other in a dozen languages. The Archon raised a limb for silence. Cannot refuse, he said. No species survives alone in this galaxy. It's maybe not, Deho agreed. But we're going to try. Effective immediately, humanity withdraws from the Galactic Council. We're recalling all our diplomats, merchants, and citizens from Council space. We're pulling back to our own territory. You want us gone? Fine, we're gone. This is foolish, another council member said. You will beg to return within a year. Deho smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. You tried to cage us because you were afraid. Now, you'll learn what humans do when you try to take our freedom. He turned and walked out. Una and Minho followed. Behind them, the council chamber filled with angry voices. No species had ever voluntarily left the council. They didn't know what to do outside the station. The Resilience waited with its engines hot. As soon as the 3 humans were aboard, Una gave the order to jump to faster-than-light speed. Earth had chosen. Humanity was alone again, and they were going to make that work. Admiral Juan Lee stood on the bridge of the battleship Defiance, watching status reports scroll across multiple screens. She was 48 years old. With short black hair and a scar across her left cheek from a piece of shrapnel 10 years ago. Today she was coordinating the largest operation in human spacefaring. History. Status report, she said. Outer Ring are moving to Rally Point? Delta, her communications officer reported. Military escorts are in position. The merchant fleet from Kelthan Space is 3 hours behind schedule, but still within acceptable parameters. Guan nodded. 3 weeks had passed since Ambassador Deho walked out of the council chamber. Now every human in the galaxy was coming home. Millions of people. Thousands of ships. All moving at once. It was chaos, but it was organized chaos, her second-in-command. Commander Tyanko walked up beside her. Admiral, we're getting reports that the Council is moving fleets into position near our major colonies. They might try to interfere. Let them try, Guan said. Her voice was calm, but her eyes were hard. Any ship that blocks our people from coming home will learn why humans win wars. On Haven Station, Governor Hyanwu Nam faced an impossible choice. His colony was home to 3 million humans. It was also home to 500,000 aliens from a dozen different species. Many had lived there for years. They had businesses, families, lives. Hanwu was 39 years old, younger than most colonial governors. He had been elected because people trusted him to make hard decisions. Now he had to make the hardest one of his life. Sir, the evacuation ships are here, his assistant said. But we can't take everyone. Not if we include the non-human residents. Then we take everyone, Hyanwu said. The council specifically said any alien helping humans would be punished. Then they'll have to punish me too. Huiyanwu pulled up the station-wide communication system. Attention all residents, human and non-human. We're evacuating this station. Anyone who wants to come is welcome. We don't leave people behind. Across the station, aliens who had been told by the council to stay away from the humans now had to choose. Most chose to evacuate. They had lived alongside humans long enough to know something the council didn't understand. Humans kept their promises. Meanwhile, Intelligence Officer Sora Yoon sat in a dark room on Earth, surrounded by computer screens. She was 31 years old and had been tracking council communications since the day humanity announced their withdrawal. What she found made her blood run cold. "You need to see this," she told her supervisor. She pulled up intercepted messages between council military commanders. They're planning to seize human assets by force. They think if they take hostages, we'll surrender. When? Her supervisor asked. Soon, maybe days. The information was sent up the chain of command. It reached Admiral Guan within the hour. She immediately sent encrypted messages to her fleet commanders. Change of plans. This wasn't just an evacuation anymore. It was a fighting retreat. The council made their move at Haven Station. 15 warships dropped out of faster-than-light speed and formed a blockade around the colony. Their commander sent a message to Governor Huiyanwu. This station is now council property. All humans are to surrender immediately. Cooperation will be rewarded. Resistance will be met with force. Huiyanwu looked at the warships on his screens. 15 ships. Each one could probably destroy his station with a single missile barrage. He had no military vessels, no weapons, nothing but 3 million people counting on him. He opened a channel to the council fleet. This is Governor Huiyanwu Nam of Haven Station. Your blockade is an act of war. Leave immediately or face consequences. The council commander actually laughed. You have no weapons, Governor. You have no fleet. You have nothing but empty threats. I have something better, Huiyanwu said. I have friends. Space itself seemed to tear open as 12 human warships dropped out of faster-than-light speed. The Resilience led them, with Captain Yuna Park at the helm. The human ships formed a protective wall between Haven Station and the council blockade. Yuna opened communications. Her voice was broadcast to both the council fleet and the entire station. This is Captain Yuna Park of the Earth vessel Resilience. You have 30 seconds to withdraw your blockade. If you're still here after that, we will assume hostile intent and respond accordingly. You wouldn't dare, the council commander said. We outnumber you. 15 to 12, Yuna agreed, but there's something you should know about human warships. We build them to win. She paused. 20 seconds. The council commander hesitated. He had seen reports about human combat capabilities. 17 defensive wars. 17 victories. Those weren't just numbers on a page. 10 seconds, Yuna said. The council fleet jumped away to faster-than-light speed. The blockade was over before it began. On Haven Station, 3 million humans and 500,000 aliens cheered. Governor Huiyanwu let out a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. Captain Yuna's face appeared on his screen. Sorry we're late, Governor, she said with a slight smile. Traffic was terrible. Better late than never, Captain. Thank you. Thank Admiral Guan, Yuna said. She's the one who figured out the council's plan. The evacuation of Haven Station took another 3 days, but there were no more incidents. The council tried to moor blockades at other colonies. Both times, human warships arrived first, and the council backed down. 60 days after Ambassador Deho walked out of the council chamber, the last human ship crossed back into Earth-controlled space. Not a single person was left behind. Not a single ship was lost. Admiral Guan stood on the bridge of the Defiance, watching the final convoy arrive. Commander Taiyang walked up beside her. All ships accounted for, Admiral? Everyone's home, Yuan nodded. She felt exhaustion trying to catch up with her, but there was also something else. Pride. They had done the impossible. They had brought everyone home safely despite the council's attempts to stop them. What do you think happens now? Taiyang asked. Now, Juan looked out at the fleet of ships, thousands of vessels from tiny scout ships to massive colony transports. Now, we figure out how to survive on our own. We've done it before, Taiyang said. For 200,000 years before we met aliens. True, Juan agreed. But there's a difference. Back then, we didn't know what was out there. Now, we do. And we know they're hostile. On Earth, Ambassador Deho received a report on his datapad. All humans accounted for. Total casualties during withdrawal. 0. He allowed himself a small smile. The Council had expected humanity to beg for mercy. Instead, humanity had walked away with their heads held high. Dr. Minho walked into Deho's office. You should see this, he said, holding up his own datapad. We're getting messages from other species. Dozens of them. They want to know how we did it. How we stood up to the Council. What kind of species? Deho asked. Small ones. Species the Council considers insignificant. They're asking if we'll help them. Deho looked at the messages scrolling across the screen. Species he'd never heard of, from worlds he'd never visited, all of them with the same question. Is freedom possible? We just got ourselves free, Deho said. Now other species want us to help them get free too. Are we going to? Minho asked. Deho thought about it. Humanity had walked away from the Council to save themselves. But maybe that wasn't enough. Maybe real freedom meant helping others find it too, as he finally said. But we're going to do it carefully. The Council thinks we're done. Let's keep them thinking that while we figure out our next move. Outside Earth, the human fleet maintained constant patrols. Inside Earth's government chambers, leaders debated the future. Across human colonies, people celebrated their freedom, and in the dark spaces between stars. Other species watched and wondered. If humans could walk away from the Council, maybe they could too. The galaxy was changing, and nobody knew what would come next. Except for one thing. Humanity wasn't going to face the future alone. Not if they could help it. 6 months had passed since humanity walked away from the Galactic Council. Ambassador Yunjihan stood on the observation deck of a neutral space station, waiting for her guests to arrive. She was 42 years old, with long black hair tied back in a simple braid. She had spent the last decade as Earth's liaison to the Council. Now she was building something new. The door opened, and 3 aliens entered. They looked nervous. They had good reason to be. Meeting with humans was now considered an act of rebellion against the Council. The first alien was a Kelthan, species that looked like a bipedal wolf with 6 arms. His name was Threx. The second was a Vrin, a small species that resembled a cross between a bird and a lizard. Her name was Kessa. The third was an Asari, species that lived in environmental suits because their atmosphere was toxic to most others. His name was Porthon. Thank you for coming, Yunji said. She gestured to chairs around a table. I know this is risky for you. The Council would execute us if they knew we were here, Threx said. His voice was a low growl. But we're tired of being afraid. Tell me about your situations, Yunji said. Kessa spoke first. Her voice was high and musical. The Vrin had been part of the Council for 3,000 years. In that time, we have paid tribute, sent our young to fight in their wars, and followed every rule. In return, we get nothing. We're called a minor species. We have no vote, no voice, no power. Threx nodded. The Kelthans are the same. We mine rare elements for the Council. They take 90% and leave us barely enough to survive. When we asked for better terms, they sent warships to orbit our homeworld. Porthon's voice came through his suit speaker. The Asari are scientists. We developed new, faster-than-light technology. The Council took it, gave us no credit, and threatened us when we protested. They call it cooperation. We call it theft. Youngji listened to each story. She had heard similar tales from dozens of species over the past months. The Council's propaganda talked about peace and stability, but the truth was different. The Council maintained order through fear and exploitation. What if I told you there was another way? Yunji asked. Like what? Kessa asked. We don't have the military power to stand against the Council. Not like humans. You don't need to stand alone, Youngji said. She pulled up a holographic document. Humanity is proposing the Coalition of Free Systems, an alliance based on mutual respect and defense. Each species keeps its sovereignty. We make decisions together. No hierarchy. No tribute. No exploitation. The three aliens stared at the document. Threx leaned forward. Why would humans do this? What do you gain? Friends, Yunji said simply. The council tried to control us. We refused. Now they consider us enemies. We could stay isolated and hope for the best, or we could build something better. Something that proves there's an alternative to the council's way. And if the council attacks, Porthon asked, then we defend each other. That's what allies do. The meeting lasted for hours. When it ended, Threx, Kessa, and Porthon left with copies of the proposed charter. Within weeks, they returned with their government's approval. The Coalition of Free Systems had its first members. On Earth, Dr. Hannah Song worked in a laboratory that hummed with activity. She was 35 years old and had spent her entire career studying alien technology. Under council regulations, certain areas of research were forbidden. Technologies deemed too dangerous or too disruptive were banned. Now those regulations were gone. Dr. Song, we have another breakthrough, her assistant said, bringing up data on a screen. The new shielding system is 40% more efficient than anything the council has. Hannah smiled. Over the past 6 months, her team had made more advances than they had in the previous 5 years. Without the council's restrictions, human innovation was exploding. New weapons, new engines, new medical treatments, new everything. Send the shielding specs to the military, Hannah said, and share them with our coalition partners freely. Are you sure? This technology gives us a significant advantage. The coalition isn't about advantage, Hannah said. It's about cooperation. We share what we learn. They share what they learn. Everyone benefits. Far from Earth, Commander Taiyang Ko led a team of special operations soldiers on a mission that officially didn't exist. They were on a world called Prios, helping a species called the Mender overthrow their council-appointed governor. Taiyang was 37 years old, and he had learned to fight in the wars that made humanity's reputation. Now, he was teaching those skills to others. The Mender were a peaceful species that looked like giant otters. They had no military tradition. But they were tired of being exploited. Remember, Taiyang whispered to the Mender resistance fighters? Speed and surprise. Get in, secure the government complex, and broadcast your declaration of independence. We'll handle any council response. The operation went perfectly. The Menders seized their own capital without firing a shot. The corrupt governor was arrested, and when council warships arrived to restore order, they found a human stealth ship already in orbit. Weapons hot. The council ships left. The Mender were free, and nobody could prove humans had been involved. Back at Coalition headquarters on Earth, Ambassador Deho received reports from UNG. 12 species had now joined the Coalition. 20 more were considering it. The movement was growing faster than anyone expected. Dr. Minho walked into Deho's office with his datapad. The council is calling us galactic anarchists in their propaganda. They're telling other species that we're trying to destroy civilized order. Are we? Deho asked.
Yes.
No, Minho said. We're trying to destroy their order. There's a difference. The council won't accept this quietly, Deho said. They're going to respond. Let them, a voice said from the doorway. Admiral Giwan entered, wearing her dress uniform. We're ready for whatever comes. On the day the coalition was officially founded, representatives from 12 species gathered on Earth. The ceremony was held in a simple auditorium, not a grand chamber designed to make people feel small. Every species had an equal seat. Every voice had equal weight. Ambassador Deho was elected as the first rotating chairman. But everyone understood it was a temporary position. Next year, it would be someone else. The coalition had no permanent leaders. No one species in charge. Today we declare that freedom is not a gift given by the powerful, Deho said in his opening speech. It's a right belonging to all beings. The Galactic Council forgot this. They believed stability required control. But true stability comes from justice. The speech was broadcast across the galaxy. Billions watched. Some with hope, some with fear. The council watched with growing alarm. After the ceremony, Yonji stood with Threx, Kessa, and Porthin. They had become friends over the months of negotiation. "Do you think this will work?" Kessa asked. I don't know, Yonji admitted. "We're trying something that's never been done before. Building an alliance based on equality instead of power." "The council will try to crush us," Threx said. Probably Yonji agreed, but they'll learn what humanity learned a long time ago. Free people fight harder than slaves? That night a message arrived from the council. The Archon's words were cold and threatening. "You are building an empire of chaos. You corrupt stable species with promises of freedom you cannot deliver. We will restore order, with or without your cooperation." Admiral Gi-Wan read the message and smiled. "They still don't understand. We're not afraid of them anymore." She doubled the fleet patrols along the Coalition's borders. Every shipyard worked overtime building new vessels. The Coalition was preparing for war, even though they hoped for peace. Dr. Hannah's research teams shared their advances with Coalition scientists. The Vrin contributed their knowledge of biology. The Asari shared their faster-than-light innovations. The Kelthans provided rare materials. Every species brought something valuable. Together, they were stronger than any of them had been alone. Commander Taiyang continued his unofficial missions, helping species liberate themselves from Council control. Each successful operation inspired others. The galaxy was waking up to a simple truth. The Council's power was based on fear, and fear only worked if people believed they had no choice. Now they had a choice. And more species were choosing freedom every day. 6 months after walking away from the Council, humanity had done the impossible. They hadn't just survived isolation, they had thrived. And they had shown others that another way was possible. The Council had wanted to cage humanity to prevent chaos. Instead, they had created something far more dangerous to their power. They had created hope, and hope, once lit, was very hard to extinguish. Fleet Admiral Seung Park stood in the Coalition war room, looking at a holographic display of the galaxy. He was 56 years old, with gray hair and a face that rarely smiled. He had fought in 8 of humanity's 17 wars. Now he was preparing for the 18th. "They're calling it Operation Restoration," Intelligence Officer Sora Yoon said, pointing to the display. She had been tracking Council communications for months. 4,000 warships from 9 species. The largest military fleet in galactic history, their target? Sung asked, though he already knew the answer. Everyone. Simultaneous strikes on Earth and every Coalition homeworld. They want to hit us all at once. Break our will to fight. Commander Taiyang Ko studied the tactical data. They're confident. They've never lost a major war. Neither have we, Sung said. What's our current strength? 800 warships, Taiyang reported, plus another 400 from our Coalition partners. We're outnumbered more than 3 to 1. The room fell silent. Those were terrible odds. But Sung had fought against worse. Numbers didn't tell the whole story. When do they attack? Sung asked. 2 weeks, Sora said. Maybe less. Across the galaxy, a young lieutenant named Jiho Kong sat in the cockpit of his reconnaissance ship. He was 28 years old and had joined the fleet specifically because of humanity's reputation for winning. Now he was about to justify that reputation. His ship was equipped with the best stealth technology humanity could build. He had spent 3 days following a Council supply convoy, recording everything. Troop movements, fleet positions, supply routes. All of it, sir. I've got something, Jiho said into his encrypted communicator. The Council's main fleet is gathering at Arcturus Gate. They're using it as a staging point before the attack. Can you confirm ship numbers? Admiral Juwan's voice came back. Confirmed. 4,000 plus. Maybe more. They're bringing everything they have. Good work, Lieutenant. Get back to Coalition space. We need that data. Jiho engaged his faster-than-light drive, but something was wrong. Alarms blared. A council patrol had detected him. 3 enemy ships were closing fast. Not today, Jiho muttered. He pushed his ship to maximum speed, dodging weapons fire. His ship took damage, but he made it across the border into Coalition space. The council ships didn't follow. They weren't ready to start the war yet. The data Jiho brought back changed everything. Fleet Admiral Sung looked at the council's attack plan and smiled for the first time in weeks. "They're making a mistake," he said. "How?" Admiral Giwan asked. "They're bringing everything to Arcturus Gate. Every ship. Every supply line. They think overwhelming force will win," Song pointed to the hologram. "But that means if we can beat them there, we beat them everywhere." "That's a big if," Captain Yuna said. She had been promoted after the Haven Station evacuation. "We're still outnumbered 3-1 in ships." Yes, Sung agreed, but not in skill, not in tactics, and not in motivation. They're fighting because they were ordered to. We're fighting for our freedom. While the military prepared, Dr. Minho worked on a different kind of weapon. He had access to the Council's complete history, given to him by Elder Counselor Vethmera. She was a council member who had opposed the war. Now she was helping humanity stop it. Vethmera looked like a floating crystal that pulsed with different colors. She had lived for 3,000 years and watched the council transform from peacekeepers into tyrants. "The truth is in these files," she told Minho. "The galaxy, what the council really is." Spent days going through the archives. What he found was damning. Records of species forced into the council through threats. Trade agreements that were actually tributes. Technology stolen and never credited. War started to maintain control. He compiled everything into a broadcast and sent it across the galaxy. Every species with a communication system received it. The council's lies were exposed. "Some will ignore it," Dr. Hanna said. "Propaganda is powerful." "But some won't," Minho replied. "And doubt is a powerful weapon." The council's response was predictable. They called the broadcast fake. They said humanity was spreading lies. But 3 species immediately withdrew from the council, disgusted by what they learned. Others began questioning their loyalty. The council accelerated their attack timeline. They couldn't afford to let doubt spread further. At Arcturus Gate, the council fleet assembled. 4,000 warships, each one crewed by beings who had been told they were defending galactic civilization from chaos. The council commanders were confident. They had more ships, more weapons, more of everything. What they didn't have was experience fighting humans. Fleet. Admiral Sung positioned the Coalition fleet carefully. 800 human warships and 400 from Coalition partners formed a defensive line at Arcturus Gate. Behind them, supply ships and medical vessels waited. This was going to be a battle, not a skirmish. "All ships. This is Admiral Sung," he broadcast to the fleet. "The council thinks they can force us back into submission through overwhelming power. They think we'll break when we see their numbers. They're wrong. Every one of you volunteered to be here. Every one of you believes in what we're fighting for. Freedom is worth defending. Show them what free people can do." The council fleet dropped out of faster-than-light speed. 4,000 ships appeared on scanners simultaneously. It was meant to be intimidating. It was intimidating. On the bridge of the Resilience, Captain Yuna watched the enemy fleet approach. Her crew was silent, professional. Scared, probably, but holding it together. "Ma'am, they're hailing us," her communications officer said. Yuna opened the channel. The council's admiral appeared on screen. He was a Talvari, like the Archon. His mandibles clicked in what might have been satisfaction. "Human vessels, you are outnumbered and outgunned. Surrender now, and your lives will be spared. Continue this resistance, and you will be destroyed." "Tell me something," Yuna said. "Have you ever fought humans before?" "We have fought dozens of species." "Your tactics are nothing we haven't seen," Yuna smiled. "Then let me educate you. Human Lesson 1, we don't surrender. Human Lesson 2, we don't lose. Human Lesson 3, You're about to learn why. She cut the connection and opened a fleet-wide channel. All ships engage at will. The Battle of Arcturus Gate began. 4,000 Council ships against 1,200 Coalition vessels. The Council expected a quick victory. They had always won through superior numbers, but humans didn't fight like other species. They were aggressive, unpredictable, and absolutely refused to follow standard tactics. Human ships dove through enemy formations, targeting command vessels. They used the asteroid field around the gate for cover. They coordinated attacks that seemed random but were carefully planned chaos. The coalition partners fought just as hard. The Vryn ships were small but fast, darting between larger vessels like birds attacking a giant. The Kelthan ships were heavily armored and used their bulk to ram enemy vessels. The Asari had brought their new, faster-than-light technology, allowing ships to make short jumps during combat. For 3 days, the battle raged. The Council kept expecting the Coalition to break. Numbers should have won. But the Coalition wasn't fighting by the Council's rules, on the resilience. Captain Yuna directed her ship through the chaos. They had taken damage, but they were still fighting. Around her, she could see other Coalition ships doing the same. Some were destroyed. Some were heavily damaged. But none retreated. Lieutenant Jiho flew his repaired reconnaissance ship as a fighter, too small for the big ships to target effectively. He took out communications arrays and sensor equipment. Blinding the enemy, Admiral Giwan commanded a battle group that kept pushing forward, never giving the Council time to regroup. Commander Taiyang led boarding parties, capturing Council ships from the inside. On the 3rd day, the Council fleet broke. They had lost nearly half their ships. Their admiral was dead. Their carefully planned formation was in ruins. The survivors jumped to faster-than-light speed and fled. The Coalition had lost 400 ships, 400 crews, thousands of lives. But they had won. In the aftermath, Fleet Admiral Sung stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking at the wreckage floating in space. They had won the battle, but the cost had been terrible. "Sir, we're receiving reports from across the galaxy," Sora said. 5 more species are withdrawing from the Council. Others are declaring neutrality. "The Council is falling apart," Admiral Juan said. "Not yet," Sung said. "But it's fractured. They've never lost like this before. Everything they believed about their invincibility is gone." On Earth, Ambassador Deho received the battle reports. He had sent those ships into battle. He had ordered those people to fight. The victory was necessary, but the cost would haunt him. Dr. Minnow walked into his office. "The galaxy is watching. What do we do now?" Deho looked out the window at Earth, peaceful and quiet despite the war being fought in the stars. "Now, we show them that we're better than the Council. We don't gloat. We don't take revenge. We offer peace. Will they accept?" "I don't know," Deho said. "But we have to try. That's what separates us from them." The Battle of Arcturus Gate changed everything. News of the Council's defeat spread across the galaxy in hours. For 10,000 years, the Council had been unbeatable. Now they had lost, and species everywhere were asking questions. Ambassador Yunji stood in what used to be an empty office building on Earth. Now it was Coalition headquarters, and she had 17 new species wanting to join. She was tired, working 18-hour days, but she kept going. This was what they had fought for. "The Dindari want membership," her assistant reported. "They're bringing industrial capacity and 3 colonies, Septim Yunji said. Send them the standard charter. Equal voice, equal rights, no tribute.
Yes.
The Council is offering them better trade terms if they stay loyal." Yunji smiled. "The Council can offer whatever they want. We're offering something they can't match. We're offering freedom." Across the galaxy, the Council itself was falling apart. In the Grand Chamber, where they had once delivered their ultimatum to humanity, only 12 species remained. 5 had withdrawn after the battle. Arguments filled the chamber day and night. The Archon still held his position, but his authority was broken. He had promised a quick victory. Instead, he had delivered the worst defeat in Council history. We must regroup, one council member argued. Build a new fleet. Attack again. With what? Another replied, We've lost half our military. 5 species have left. Others refuse to contribute more ships. We barely have enough to defend our own territory. Elder Counselor Vethmera watched the argument with ancient eyes. She had opposed this war from the beginning. Now, she was watching the system she had served for 3,000 years collapse. Perhaps, she said quietly, it is time to accept that we were wrong. The chamber fell silent. No one had expected those words from a council elder. Wrong? The Archon repeated. We maintained peace for 10,000 years, no, Vethmera said. We maintained control. There's a difference. Humanity showed us that. And now, we must face the consequences. On Earth, Captain Yuna led a humanitarian mission to a former council world called Theros. The planet was in chaos. The council had withdrawn suddenly, leaving no government, no infrastructure support, nothing. People were starving. Yuna's ship, the Resilience, was loaded with food, medicine, and supplies. She landed in the capital city and opened her cargo bays. We're here to help, she told the local population through translators. No cost, no conditions. Just help. The Theros people were suspicious at first. Everyone knew humans had destroyed the council fleet. Why would they help? But Yuna and her crew kept their word. They distributed food. They set up medical stations. They helped restore power plants and water systems. And they asked for nothing in return. Within a week, 12 more coalition ships arrived, with more supplies. Not just human ships, Vryn ships, Kelthan ships, Asari ships. The entire coalition was helping. A Theros elder approached Yuna. Why are you doing this? We were part of the council. We stood against you. You didn't start this war, Yuna said. Your leaders did. And right now you need help. That's all that matters. The elder was silent for a long moment. Then she asked, Can Theros join your coalition? Similar scenes played out on a dozen former council worlds. The coalition didn't conquer. They didn't take revenge. They helped. And species that had feared humanity began to understand them. Dr. Minho was working with Elder Counselor Vethmera to publish the complete council archives. 10,000 years of history, all of it available to anyone who wanted to read it. The good, the bad, and the terrible. This will destroy what remains of the council's reputation, Vethmera said. Is that what you want? Minho asked. What I want is truth, she said. The council was good once. We genuinely tried to keep peace. But power corrupted us. We forgot that we were servants, not masters. If publishing this history prevents the same mistakes from being repeated, then it's worth it. The archives showed everything. How the council had started as a genuine peacekeeping organization after a devastating galactic war. How it had slowly transformed into something else. How good intentions had turned into control. How control had turned into oppression. Dr. Hannah read through the files and found something surprising. In the early days, the council had encouraged innovation and cooperation. They had shared technology freely. They had helped species grow. They were like us once, she told Minho. The coalition, I mean. They started with the right ideas. Then they forgot them. Which is why we need to remember, Minho said. Power doesn't corrupt instantly. It happens slowly, one compromise at a time. We need to guard against that. On a neutral station, Ambassador Deho received a message he never expected. The council's Archon wanted to meet. Privately. No guards. No witnesses. Just a conversation. Deho agreed, though Admiral Juwan insisted on having a stealth ship nearby just in case. The Archon arrived, looking smaller somehow. His mandibles didn't click with the same confidence they once had. He looked like what? He was a leader whose entire worldview had collapsed. Ambassador Kim, he said. You were right, Deho. Said nothing, waiting. When you rejected our ultimatum, I thought you were being foolish, prideful. I believed isolation would destroy you within a year. The Archon's voice was quiet. Instead, you thrived. You built something better than what we offered, and we attacked you for it. Yes, Deo said. You did. What do you want from us? Surrender, tribute, revenge? Deho thought about the question. Part of him wanted revenge. The council had tried to cage humanity, then tried to destroy them when they refused. But revenge wouldn't build anything. It would just continue the cycle. I want you to understand something, Deho said. We didn't walk away from the council because we wanted to be alone. We walked away because you tried to take our freedom. Everything that happened after that was you trying to force us back into submission. And now? Now you have a choice. The council can dissolve and let species find their own paths. Or it can reform, become what it was supposed to be. A forum for discussion, not a tool for control. But either way, the age of forcing compliance is over. Species will choose their own futures. The Archon was silent for a long time. If we do this, if we reform, will humanity help? Under one condition, Deho said. No species is above any other. No hierarchy. No permanent leaders. Equal voices for everyone, that's chaos. No, Deho said. That's freedom. And you'll find that free people can accomplish more than controlled people ever could. 6 months later, the Galactic Reformation Conference opened on a neutral world. Every species was invited, from the most powerful to the smallest colony. Every single one had an equal vote. The old Galactic Council formally dissolved itself. In its place, the Galactic Forum was established, a place where disputes could be discussed, agreements negotiated, and cooperation encouraged. But membership was voluntary. Participation was chosen. No one could be forced. The Coalition of Free Systems remained separate but worked closely with the Forum. They had proven that a different way was possible. 5 years after, humanity walked away from the council chamber. Ambassador Yunji gave a lecture at the University of New Geneva on Earth. Students from a dozen different species sat in the audience. They told us we were too dangerous, Yunji said. Too aggressive. Too unpredictable. They tried to control us for our own good, they claimed. We said no, and they called it rebellion. We defended ourselves, and they called it aggression. We helped others, and they called it empire building. But here's what the council never understood about humanity. We don't want to rule the galaxy. We've seen what power does to people. We've read the council's own history. We know how good intentions can turn into tyranny. We just wanted to be free. And we wanted that freedom for everyone else too. A student raised a hand. Professor Han, do you think we made the right choice? Walking away from the council? Yunji thought about the question. She thought about the war, the lives lost, the struggles. But she also thought about what they had built. A coalition based on cooperation, not control. A forum where every voice mattered. A galaxy where freedom was spreading, as she said. Because staying would have meant accepting that some beings have the right to control others. And we don't believe that. Not anymore. Captain Yuna, now an admiral herself, commanded a joint coalition patrol with Kelthan and Vryn ships. They were exploring regions the old council had never bothered to investigate. New systems. New species. New possibilities. Admiral, we're picking up a signal, her communications officer reported. It's a distress call from an unknown species. Yuna smiled. Then let's go introduce ourselves and let them know they're not alone anymore. Her ship jumped to faster than light speed, heading toward the signal. Behind her, the coalition fleet followed. They weren't conquering. They weren't controlling. They were offering friendship. Dr. Minho published his comprehensive study on humanity's impact on galactic civilization. The title was simple: The Human Paradox. How Earth's most dangerous trait became the galaxy's greatest hope. His conclusion was clear. Humanity's unpredictability, the very thing the Council feared, was exactly what the galaxy needed. 10,000 years of stability had become stagnation. The Council had created a system where no one could change, grow, or challenge the established order. Humans didn't fit that system. And in not fitting, they broke it open. They showed other species that change was possible, that growth was possible, that freedom was possible, on Earth Ambassador Deho finally retired. He was 60 years old now, and tired of politics. He bought a small house with a garden and spent his days growing vegetables. One evening, Admiral Giwan came to visit. She was still in uniform, still commanding fleets, still protecting the coalition. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked, walking away from the council that day. Deho looked up at the sky. He could see ships passing overhead, vessels from dozens of species traveling freely through human space. All of them welcome. All of them equal. The council went too far when they forgot what peace really means, he said. Peace isn't the absence of conflict. It's the presence of justice. When they tried to cage us, they weren't offering peace. They were offering submission, and now, Guan asked, now we have something better. Not perfect. Not easy, but better. A galaxy where species can choose their own paths. Where cooperation is voluntary. Where no one has to bow to anyone else. He smiled. We didn't walk away from peace that day, Giwan. We walked toward it. And we brought a lot of others with us. Above Earth, the stars shone bright. And for the first time in 10,000 years, the galaxy was truly free. The age of empires was over. The age of freedom had begun. And humanity, the species that refused to be caged, had shown everyone the way forward.